What's up, Beer Geeks? I'm Chris Cohen. I am an advanced Cicerone, the founder of Beer Scholar, a national BJCP judge, and a few other things. And this is a new project I'm working on. Interviews with Cicerones. It's called Meet a Cicerone. And it is brand spanking new podcast. This is just the second episode. It's still kind of coming into form, the way that this is going to work. It's not very polished. These first two episodes I just recorded on Zoom because I was actually thinking I was just going to chat with these folks to get feedback, honestly, on my Beer Scholar course. Obviously, I talk to lots of people who are taking these exams all the time. I talk to my students all the time. So I'm always up to date on this stuff, and I think that sharing some of that information, sharing some of these students' experiences, how going after this knowledge, learning this stuff, becoming a certified Cicerone, or even advanced or master, as I hope to get some folks on the podcast of those levels in the near future, how they're putting that knowledge into use, how this is helping their career. I think there's a lot of really good stories out there, a lot of transformations, transformative stories. And I would like to share that stuff with the world because I think there are a lot of folks out there who are in the industry in particular who kind of know that they should pursue this stuff, but aren't. And maybe partly that's because they're not quite sure what it would do for them. And then also folks look at the Cicerone exam and maybe my course, and they think to themselves, that's just going to be really time consuming and it's kind of expensive. My take on it is, of course, I'm biased, but my take on it is wildly different than that. My take on it is, if you're in the industry, you can't afford not to do this. Like, do you want to have a great career? Or do you want to have this tool and this certification that is going to help you accomplish your goals? Or do you just kind of want to go with the flow? If you got the Certified Cicerone certification and you got like a $1 an hour raise, it would pay for itself, in like literally 6 months or something. Even if you like enrolled in my course and did the exam. So anyway, the time and money argument. Oh, and also people who enter my course often do it in like 2 months, prep and take the certified exam in like 2 months. It depends where you're starting from, obviously. But anyway, point is, I'm not trying to turn these things into just like, conversations all about Beer Scholar. They're conversations about the how and the why of doing Cicerone certifications and beer education. So I hope that you are enjoying them so far. This is only the second one. This is Meet a Cicerone episode 2, and I'm talking to Chase Petrovic of Olde Mecklenburg Brewing in North Carolina. I hope you enjoy. Howdy.
Hey, Chris.
How's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
It's been a while since I Zoomed.
I know. I should be using like Riverside or some kind of legit podcasting software. It's like this new thing I'm doing where I'm trying to do like a Meet a Cicerone kind of podcasty conversation with folks who have gone through my program. And I think that a lot of people out there in the world are like, why should I do the Cicerone levels, right? What benefit would that have for me? What kind of work could I do with that? Or like what kind of people are doing this? You know what I'm saying? It's shocking how there's still only like 4,600 certified Cicerones in the world. And I think
Yeah,
it's because people just don't know what it'll do for them necessarily.
yeah, and I understand. For me, it was more of a continuing education and just in keeping everything alive.
Yeah. Chase Petrovic, 14 years in the industry.
14 years.
Olde Mecklenburg
Yes, sir.
in North Carolina, is it?
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
very cool. I hear you have a very great beer garden.
Yes, actually, we just won USA Today's best beer garden in the country, voted by the readers.
That's very cool. Very cool.
Not
And
bad.
what's your role there?
I am the head cellarman.
The head cellarman. Interesting. Tell me what that job is like.
So every day I get up at 3:30 in the morning and I drive 45 minutes to work, and then I either start the brew or our head brewer will show up at the same time. He'll start the brew. but the brew gets started for the day, and then I go take fermentation samples, make sure the beers that have been fermenting are moving along, and we check them twice a day. And then I'll assess whether ferment or filtration needs to be done on any batches, transfers, tanks that need to be cleaned, basically, legit cellar work. We had a smaller system, a 15-barrel system, about 7 years ago, and we ramped up to a 60-barrel system. It's BrowCon, it's automated, it doesn't need to be watched over, but I like the hands-on work. I like being in the cellar. I like doing all that,
Mm-hmm.
running around. So yeah, just making sure the beer is up to spec. All the carbonation levels are good, and no flavor issues. So yeah, it's what I've been doing, and I
Very
really
cool.
enjoy it.
Yeah, so that's cool. All kinds of production and quality assurance kind of work.
That's right.
Yeah, nice. And that's cool. I mean, that's interesting. I think that a lot of people think of like the Cicerone stuff as being more geared towards like people who sell beer more directly.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, I could see that. I'll say maybe like 2022, I just hit a plateau. I really did. I'm not using a certain amount of knowledge on a daily basis. I'm really only using a minimum amount of knowledge because the brewing process repetitive. It's clean, rinse, and repeat. And so I really wanted to up my game and really double down on this industry and really reinvest in myself. And that's when I decided Cicerone was probably the best way to go to just continue my education.
Very cool. Very cool. And do you have kind of a concept for what you want to do with the stuff you've been learning?
After I received the certification, I really did want to get involved with beer dinners that our brewery has been putting on for the past 2 years, I believe.
Nice.
And I did want to get more involved, but just wanted to be more comfortable with myself in that environment and explaining, how to pair with everything. And I shared all of your notes on beer pairings with our chef and our general manager, and
Awesome.
they were blown away.
Yeah, very cool. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I think one of the coolest things I think about learning all this stuff that you will learn, by the way, I don't know if I already said congratulations on passing the Certified Cicerone exam, but
Oh, you
congratulations.
did. You did. I
And
appreciate
yeah, one of the nice things it does for you is it gives you the confidence to really speak intelligently about beer and all these different aspects of beer from storage all the way to pairing with food.
it.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's huge. And what you're doing there is really like hand to hand. You're creating events and you're talking to people, you're helping to come up with these pairings and talking to people about why they work. That's super cool. I think doing events is really fun. Obviously, a lot of the people who end up doing the Cicerone certifications do end up doing like some training work at their breweries or education work, whether internally or at events like that. So that's very
Hmm.
cool. Nice. Yeah. So are you thinking you might get a little more into event production, or you're sticking with the production though?
I'm definitely sticking with production. At least I could see myself doing that for at least another 10 years.
Nice.
You, it's a very physically demanding job.
Right.
Staying fit and able to do it is always my top priority. I make sure I'm doing, my wife's a yoga instructor, so I got plenty of flexibility and the ability to keep doing that. But yeah, um, just to grow beyond the cellar is always a good thing because I always loved the original days at our old brewery where the people are watching us brew and we can see them through the windows and we can always go back and interact with them at the bar. That was always the most fun time for me because you get to interact with the customers and you feel like a rock star at that point.
Yeah.
But they get to see it being made and it's just a great environment.
That's
And yeah, stick in the tap room. But I always thought that was cool.
yeah, that's rad. Yeah, I like that. It's funny. I'm not like making a fortune here selling courses for to train people for the Cicerone exam. So every now and then I think about should I like make this a side gig and get a quote unquote real job in the industry? And I'm like, oh man, I think I'm too old to jump into production at this point. I don't know. I'd have to start working out like immediately, getting into shape.
It's demanding for sure. It's a young man's game, and I just turned 40, so I'm gonna start feeling it every day.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna have to become more of a manager than an actual person who's like moving equipment around or something.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool though. You're like broadening your the sort of possibilities or for what you can do in with beer in the beer game by doing
Yeah.
the Cicerone stuff and learning like keeping with the education stuff. I love hearing about someone who's actually been in the business for a long time who wants to do continued kind of education because there's a lot of people are like they first get into beer and they're like incredibly excited and have all
Yes.
this energy to learn about it, but it's a different thing when you're already in the industry for 14 years and you decide to like do some continuing education work.
Yeah, no,
Takes
it's very important, I think, especially after going through your course. It's beyond eye-opening, and you get thrown back into a nostalgic feel of, oh, I remember the days of when the American craft beer industry was just amber ales, pale ales, and brown ales, and and that's
yeah.
what it was.
And us kind of old timers in our 40s or whatever, we're like old timers
Mm,
now. I lived in San Francisco for a long time before moving to Portland, Oregon, and I was hanging out with like Pete Schlossberg, Pete's Wicked Ale and stuff like that. In the Bay Area, that old school craft beer scene is like the old gods of the of craft beer. They're around. Vinny Solerzo, Pete Schlossberg, all these guys. And it's just funny to me because if you're new to beer in like the recent years and like the haze craze is where you come from. Like you hear someone say like amber and brown ale and all these old kind of American craft beer staples. That's like
mhm.
beer they've never even really had. It's kind
Yeah,
of
no, the course was great because it brought back old styles to taste again. English beers I've never been a big fan of, but the appreciation is just overwhelming now. Like I'm buying Old Speckled Hen at the corner store a lot more than I ever would have.
I love that. That's so great.
I'm understanding it better. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's one of the things I like. You probably heard me mention it in some of the lessons or in the text with the lessons where I'm like, drink broadly,
yeah.
go beyond the normal stuff that you've been drinking because now you're doing education work, so you really need to branch out. And and for me, yeah, I mean, it really opened my eyes. I think, for instance, like back when we were first getting into beer, I think a lot of people like their path to getting into beer was like partly populated with like Belgian beers.
Hmm,
I
hmm,
don't think that's so much the case anymore, but they're so good. And English beers, like you said, like they're so subtle compared to American craft beer.
hmm.
I don't know. There's just like a whole different take on how to make beer and what the balance should be like. And I don't know. I think it's great. I think it's fun. If you're in beer for a long time, like you get that like palate shift, that kind of thing where you're like, okay, I've been drinking
Yeah.
hazies for like a year or two. I'm ready to try some other stuff now. And maybe I don't want a milkshake IPA.
Belgians are definitely probably my favorite region for beer because Saison Dupont is probably one of my all time. And then
It's a good desert island beer.
yeah, very true. But yeah, any Chimay or triples I really enjoy as well. And there's just a lot more I still haven't had, but just the variety that you get just from the yeast is it's out of this world.
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild. What kind of stuff do you specialize in at Old Mecklenburg?
Those are typically German style beers.
Oh,
So
nice.
specializing alt beers and German pilsners and Hefeweizens.
Oh, cool.
Um, some years the boss will take us on trips. So you buy your plane ticket, and then we'll go either Munich and Dusseldorf or Cologne and Dusseldorf. Spend some time on the Altstadt and go through Schlüssel, Schumacher, Uriga, and really delve into what he fell in love with when he was working in Germany and fell in love with the alt beer.
Very
And that's our flagship, Copper, the alt beer.
wow.
Uh,
Your flagship is an alt beer. I mean, that's I think like Alaskan Brewing's Amber was considered an alt beer, and that was like one of the few, the only other brewery I can think of that has a flagship alt beer.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool, man.
definitely grew the scene here in Charlotte. back in 2009, and Charlotte's just blown up ever since.
Yeah, North
But
Carolina is the place to be.
yeah, a lot of good beer in this country.
No, totally. I'm sitting here in Portland, Oregon. I got nothing to complain about.
Yeah, I need
It's
to visit. I've been to California once, but that was before. That was way before any. I was 21, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I traveled to California for like a spring break once when I was like 21-ish. And yeah, there was no beer was not on my radar as being particularly important at that time.
No,
I knew
it's
there was good beer
yeah,
out there. I had taken notice, but it wasn't like my life.
yeah. I'd like to get up to Pacific Northwest one of these days. Maybe go up to Vancouver as well.
Yeah.
That would be really nice.
If you ever make it to Portland, I'd be happy to take you around town.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
We got some good breweries out here, obviously. And actually, I'm trying to think like Olde Mecklenburg style. We've got, let's see, I've seen some good alt beers from Wayfinder here and other German, they specialize in all kinds of German stuff. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're pretty badass. Chuckanut is like up in Washington State, not too
Mhm.
far away, and they have great German stuff, including a great alt beer. So yeah, lots of good stuff out here for you to try.
Excellent.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
very cool.
we've been expanding our profile over the past 2 years and gotten beyond the German styles. We did a West Coast IPA last year featuring Solero hops, Simcoe hops, and Callista.
Oh,
Very,
Solera.
yeah, it's pretty very nice. Guava, kind of mango, and the berry and citrus with the Callista and Simcoe.
Hmm.
It's not bad.
I don't think
Not
I've
bad.
ever heard of Solero hops before. That's fun.
It's German. It's actually a German hop.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so noble-ish.
Yes. Yes.
In the Cicerone program, we would call them continental hops.
Yeah.
I love how they have, it's not like they made this stuff up, but you got to learn the Cicerone way of things for the exam. It's a good way to structure the knowledge though. So it works. So let's see. I wrote down a few things that I think we had emailed about, which was you, first of all, you had initially delayed your exam because your third son was born around the time you were going to take it or prep for it. So that's
Yes.
that's amazing that you're working a full-time job and have a newborn son and two other kids and you're still doing the stuff. Like big props to you for that.
Yeah, the only time I had was after work. I could get an hour and a half maybe sitting in the tap room and just put my headphones on and start studying. And before I had to go home and get the boys. But yeah, if you want to make it work, you can.
And I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me because obviously you're busy as hell.
Yeah, we're all busy.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
that's
Yeah,
true.
no problem.
And you mentioned in an email that the course allowed, like the structure of the course allowed you to sort of manage your time and actually get it done. So I appreciated hearing that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it worked. The structure for your course was the PowerPoint on the side where you can visualize and see all the text and everything, and then just having the ability to, if let's say I knew I couldn't study that day, I could just have the course on in the car while I'm driving just to get any sense of what was going on at least. But there's always time. As long as you make time, there's always time. Yeah.
No, it's definitely true. People have like a few key or like repeated sort of um, reasons that they don't do this stuff. And time and money are the obvious ones. And then if you actually dig deeper, it's like fear of learning all the styles information, which I don't know. What do you think? How hard is it?
I do have a good amount of experience, so I had a good foundation of knowledge about what was out there. And it's been over the past, I'd say, 10 years where you really see a bunch of styles that you never really heard before. But as far as what was expected on the Cicerone, I was very underwhelmed by what they were actually looking for.
Yeah,
Um,
in terms of meaning that it was a little easier than you thought it
it
would
was
be.
definitely easier.
Yeah.
The over preparation of the Beer Scholar program was very diligent, I'd say,
Oh, good.
because
Hopefully, I didn't
I
take you too far. I try to prepare people just beyond what they need.
Yeah.
And that,
My thought process going into it, because I rescheduled it, I think probably in September to do it in December. By the time December came around, I'm like, I'm not really sure if I'm ready for this, but I'm gonna do it. We're gonna do it now. And then if whether I pass or not, we're gonna do it again. But I was definitely underwhelmed by the expectations
hmm,
because my expectations were you had me up here.
right. Oh, okay. I
And
see what you're saying. So you felt like so well prepared that the actual exam just didn't feel like that scary once you got going.
not at all. And
That's amazing. Yeah.
but the BJCP guideline stuff was not really a big portion of the test, really,
Right.
other than what I assumed was basic knowledge, basic beer knowledge.
Yeah. And everyone's really scared about memorizing the vital stats. And what I always tell people is, look, there will be vital stats on the exam. I have created this like flashcard deck that contains like the ones that I think you should learn. That is like a very kind of small subset of the total. And if you learn those, you're going to get some decent amount of those correct, of those questions. And hey, if you're one of those kind of people that do great memorizing numbers, there are some people out there like that, then go ahead and memorize them all. But overall, like I tell people, don't sacrifice really preparing other areas of knowledge just to spend a shitload of time memorizing vital stats. But
Yeah,
everyone's really scared about it. It's one of the things everyone always says.
yeah,
That
that was definitely the big part of the advanced Cicerone program. That's still my weak area for sure.
Oh yeah,
Just
when you get up to the advanced level, then you actually need to do more memorizing, and it's unfortunate but true. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
And
that sounds about right.
if if you decide, Chase, to go on to the AC, we'll get you in the coaching program that we do.
Well, I do appreciate the preferred reading
Mm,
that you gave out. That's definitely helpful. I already had two of the books. I ordered two more as well,
cool.
and so just spending my time reading when I can and
That's cool.
enjoying enjoying it.
So is that kind of a long-term goal for you?
Yeah, right now I'm just going to do the reading and do what I can. My goal this year, I suppose my strengths would be in sensory analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe I would be comfortable doing the tasting exam in October when they come to Charlotte
Nice.
and just prep for that. And we've done a lot of sensory analysis at Olde Meck in the past years. We had brewmaster who actually works up in Alaskan Brewing now. He's basically the head guy there,
Nice.
and we did a lot of off flavors and sensory analysis test kits and everything. So I got a nice sense of that and really honed in my skills just from all the time that we spent on that. And now I'm like the diacetyl hound dog at work right now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that the tasting exam is another one of everyone's big fear. And another thing you probably heard me say a bunch is like this stuff is all learned. It's all about doing your reps with these compounds to make those mental connections. But like your brain has been doing this work since the day you were born. Like it
Yeah.
knows these things, and you just have to bring that to the forefront, like conscious level. So a lot of the time, it's just about getting focused and trusting yourself.
Yes. And I remember watching a video with you and
Scott?
yes, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And he was talking about, I think this was the advanced Cicerone prep
The little
that you
workshop.
got.
Yeah.
Yes. And he mentioned being focused and having a sense of was like a yogi. It was a yoga
Yeah.
term.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's absolutely, it's the way we talk about it to our students at those higher levels is like it's almost like new agey, like you need to get focused. You need to, I can't, yeah, I know what you're trying, the word you're
You gotta
trying to think
breathe.
of.
You gotta breathe. You gotta breathe and be in the moment.
You got to be in the moment.
Yes.
You got to clear your mind and be
Yes.
focused. That's like half the battle with this stuff.
Yes. And in today's world, it's not common. People aren't thinking about that at all, really. But when you're trying to describe something to someone that you're tasting, it's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're like, at least Americans, like we're a culture of people who like, we literally walk down the street while we're eating our burger. We don't really do that kind of focused tasting on a day-to-day basis. And I guess there's no reason you really would, but I think some people just naturally do it a little more than others. I think that's part of the reason why there's this idea out there that this stuff is genetic or something, but
Mhm.
it's not. It's all learned as
Yeah, 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 very
so.
true.
And you got a 93% on the tasting exam.
That's right.
That's pretty
Almost.
badass. Pretty
I, I
badass.
mixed I mixed up what I thought was a double with a wee heavy.
Mm,
Yeah, it was close. There was a lot of raisin notes to it, so I had to assume it was double, but it was Old Chub by Oscar Blues.
that the wee heavy versus double is one that they use frequently. And it's interesting because in retrospect, I'm sure you were just like, obviously there's phenols or not phenols. That's like the big giveaway there. Like Belgian beers will have phenols and a wee heavy never would. But that malt profile is going to be similar. So that's why that one's so hard. Yeah. And they use that one a bunch. That's the kind of inside info like I give folks in my course. Or actually, it's not even that inside. Like I have a bunch of YouTube videos doing these like classic side by sides, and like half of those are ones that I like just are ones they use on the exam. So I'm trying to give people
I've
the
watched
info.
a lot of them. Yeah, no, they're
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, good. That's cool, man. And then so you had this crazy like story about the written exam though, where you like got
Ah,
to the end and had not enough time or not very much time to do all the essays.
I spent. You were prepping us, like I said, you were over preparing, and so I was ready to give as much detail, and that was definitely not one of my strong suits. I'm just I I never really enjoyed explaining things,
Yeah, yeah.
so but I learned how to just elaborate and get into as much detail. If any thought you can think about any subject, write it down. And
Right.
so they give you this one line in the short answers on the essays or on the short answers,
Yeah.
and you just keep writing until it stops. It doesn't let you write anymore. So I'm assuming you can write maybe 5 sentences before it just stops.
Yeah.
5, 6 sentences. So I did that with all the short answers, basically. And then by the time I got to the essays, I was like maybe 10 minutes left and I'm just starting. I'm like, no. So I was already dreading it. I got the first one done. And then the second one came and it was like, I'm just writing gibberish down at this point.
Yeah. Oh my
And I
gosh.
didn't even see the last essay question. And I'm like, that went well.
That's insane. You basically wrote essays for all of the questions.
That's what it felt like.
Because the short answers, that test is mostly short answer, which is, it really does test your knowledge, right? That's like recall level knowledge. You actually are not just getting multiple choice. That's so you do need to know your shit.
Yes, yes. And that was a big thing compared to the beer servers exam where it's
Right.
all multiple choice. And then knowing, oh, this is not multiple choice at all. It's
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. That's why like doing the flashcards is huge because it's like directly testing your recall instead of just doing quit multiple choice quizzes, which I have both of those things in the course so that you can kind of ramp up in a structured manner. But yeah, that's a trip, man. And you still did great though. You still got what, an 83% overall.
Yes, sir.
Even though you didn't even get to the final essay. So obviously, okay, you talked about how I over prepare people a little bit. And this is why, not to cause them to write essays for all the short answer questions, but to make sure that like even if there's some area that they're like show up and are weak in for some reason, or they just get asked one essay question that they totally don't know for some reason, they'll have done so well on everything else that they'll still pass. So that's the concept.
Hey, it worked.
That's cool, man. I'm glad it felt easy. And as far as the AC goes, if you do want to ever enroll in our coaching program, you get $500 off the price because you were in the CC program.
Mhm.
And also, if you do decide to take the AC tasting exam in October and you just want to
Okay.
connect over Zoom with me to get some advice, I'd be happy to chat with you for an hour and just give you the rundown on all the different panels and some like top line advice for how to approach them.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. All
Appreciate it.
right. Yeah. So I guess I should ask just final question of if you have any feedback for me, having just taken the exam recently, and if there was anything in the course that, you know, was particularly helpful or that you would make adjustments to, or that I could make adjustments to for folks in the future?
Can't think of anything at the very moment.
No, that's great. That's great.
I was definitely thinking a lot about. I felt my weakness was food pairing
Mm,
because I have little experience as a chef
yeah.
or cooking. That was definitely probably what worried me most outside of the guidelines. But the expectations for that as well were not as harsh as what I was thinking. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. The food pairing stuff, I think I do go into a lot of detail in the course on that to beyond, like, in terms of just how much of the exam it really is. It's just not a ton, so I don't get too crazy into it in the course. But to
But
me
there's a lot of
personally,
content.
yeah, it's like the most fun thing that you can do with beer.
I
So
agree.
yeah, I do love that stuff. I know that you, as an insanely busy person, were unable to make it to the weekly live tasting and Q&A sessions that I do for folks in the CC program. So each one of those, we like pick a style and we just like each everyone shows up with the beer and then we like break it down. We do come up with evocative descriptors for it. And then in the end, we always talk about food pairing. And I just try to, through like repetition, like because the same people tend to come to the tastings every week. So it's like here's the system for how you do pairings, and based on the beer we just broke down, what would you pair with it? And so that's always fun. That's a good way to learn that stuff. But food and beer pairing is just something you have to do in real life to get good at it. So it's cool that you're doing those events. That's really fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm usually making dinner for three boys on a daily basis. I got to mix it up and try things at home.
Right. What
So,
pairs well with the mac and cheese and hot dogs?
not too much of that.
I'm just messing with you.
I know, but I found
Uh,
that the use of lime with vegetables is insane. It's key. Like I will make a salad and sprinkle lime with it, and it'll preserve it. It'll keep it fresh for an extra day. It tastes amazing. It's
mhm.
light. It's easy. Yeah, it's cheap. Yeah, it's good stuff.
That's cool. All right. That's an interesting, fun tip. Yeah. I think what's funny, I would say, maybe related to that, is if you are salting your dishes properly, but they still seem to be lacking some zing to them or some kind of complexity or something, a lot of times it's just adding acidity is the other
Mhm.
kind of answer I've found. And I cook a lot. So I do have a lot of experience in the kitchen. And sometimes, yeah, sometimes that's the key. Like when I make like batches of beans, stuff like that, it's like, the umami, the saltiness, it can just be like overwhelming and not that complex. But then you add some
Mhm.
acidity and all of a sudden everything's bright and you've got like this contrasting acidity with that deep umami flavor. And one of the interesting things I would just go on from there to say is like when you think about different tastes or flavors that work well together in different dishes, that's just like one of the ways that you do pairings is like you think about, I don't know, you know that chocolate cake goes great with certain fruit or fruit sauce on it, right? If you can separate those two things and bring, say, a chocolate cake without the fruit on it, and then a beer that pairs with it that to pair with it that does bring that to the table, that brings that acidity and that like fruitiness, then boom, you're like taking people to a place that they're already familiar with using flavors and tastes that they already are familiar with and that we know work well together. So that's my pairing tip of the day.
Nice.
Yeah. Dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. If I'm ever in North Carolina, I will be sure to pop into Olde Mecklenburg and say hello.
Excellent, excellent. Chris, definitely appreciate your info and your knowledge and everything. And we'll definitely talk again soon.
I hope so. Yeah, hit me up. A, if you're ever coming to Portland. B, if you're interested in the AC coaching. Or C, if you're just going to take that tasting and you want to go for it. Yeah, hit me up for some advice.
Yeah, definitely. First things first, we'll get to that the tasting exam and hopefully go over that.
Yeah. Cheers. And if you're ever in Portland, reach out.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Have a good one, Chase.
See ya.
See ya.